housing market is a catastrophe.
Record rental prices across the United States.
And something's got to give.
Living in America is freaking ridiculous right now.
I can't afford any of these apartments.
$1,800 for a one-bedroom apartment.
$1,400 for 485 square feet.
I guess I just live in my truck.
Over a third of Americans are renters, and if you're in that category, you probably don't need to be told that the rental market is out of control. The question is, can anything actually be done about it? A historic wave of tenant organizing, unlike anything we've seen in decades, has found one answer: national rent control.
The tenant movement is absolutely within striking distance of rent regulation at the national level.
But it's not just tenants who are organized. This is also a story about how some of America's biggest landlords, banks, and private equity firms are hiding behind innocent-sounding front groups, all while pooling their money to keep your rent high.
I moved into Waldo Heights in 2018, so I've been here 5 years now. And every year since I've been here, my rent has increased. Every time my rent is raised, I'm at a crossroads of being evicted.
Millions of renters like Val are trapped in a rental market that's built to empower abusive landlords who can raise rents each year while allowing conditions to get worse and worse.
The mice, the roach infestations, sometimes they don't pick up our garbage. When I first moved here, I was told that the security gate was going to be fixed. The gate is still not fixed, and so people come in and they sleep in our hallways. I'm afraid sometimes to come in my building at night. My landlord is Landmark Realty, a corporation based in California. They don't care. They just don't care.
Since the last financial crisis, rental units are increasingly owned and operated by corporations like Landmark that are accountable, first and foremost, to their private investors. For tenants like Val, legal protections against abusive landlords are often limited. But she discovered one powerful way to fight back.
So me and my neighbor, my best friend down the hall from me, we just said one day, she was like, let's call KC Tenants. And I said, okay. So I called and I left a message on the hotline. And a couple of days later, I got a phone call back.
A group called KC Tenants were fighting to stop eviction hearings at the Jackson County Courthouse.
Evictions will kill people like me.
Charged crowd packed City Hall for more than 3 hours. The yellow shirts in the room are tenants, each with their own personal story.
In a national housing crisis where rent inflation has vastly outpaced income growth, groups like KC Tenants have given their members power to take on their landlords.
We have written and passed a tenant's bill of rights. We've won free lawyers for every tenant facing eviction. We've organized buildings and neighborhoods. And just recently, we elected 4 members of city council.
And that movement seems to be growing.
Places like Louisville, Kentucky, Bozeman, Montana, Cape Girardeau, Missouri.
The current surge in tenant organizing is the most significant since the 1970s. And it's allowing renters to fight for the kind of big relief that only the federal government can enact.
There are millions of tenants across the country being squeezed by landlords like Landmark, and our federal government is letting it happen.
That's right.
We can fight back by winning rent control for everyone at Waldo Heights and for tenants across.
When Landmark Realty secured a mortgage for Val's building in 2014, their loan was actually backed by the federal government. Corporate landlords like Landmark often benefit from lucrative loans through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, government-sponsored enterprises that purchase mortgages from banks and set terms for them. With 1 in 4 apartment units across the country financed in this way, the government is essentially in business with our landlords. But that may be just the leverage that renters need.
We want to see every dollar of federal financing conditioned on a set of tenant protections. If you're borrowing on really favorable terms, that money is backed by public dollars, you should be on the hook. You shouldn't be able to increase your rent 20% and evict a whole lot of tenants to maximize your profits for your investors. What we want to see is them say, if you're borrowing from a government-backed enterprise, you can't increase the rent more than 3% year over year.
Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are regulated by the Federal Housing Finance Agency, or FHFA. Thanks to the work of tenant organizers, the FHFA is seriously considering policy along these lines. But there's just one problem. Tenants aren't the only ones who are organized.
We're here at the National Multifamily Housing Council because the rent is too motherfucking high. They've spent so much of their time lobbying to make sure that rent protections don't exist for people like us.
Landlord industry groups like the National Multifamily Housing Council spend millions lobbying Congress and federal agencies to oppose rent control. Since the start of last year, the NMHC has spent almost $10 million lobbying against it. The NMHC's members include major banks, private equity firms, and some of America's most notorious corporate landlords, like Greystar, AvalonBay, and Blackstone. Blackstone is the world's largest private equity firm, and by some accounts, the largest landlord in the US. In recent years, private equity firms like Blackstone have increasingly been buying up housing assets, often with lucrative loans backed by Fannie and Freddie. Tenants have complained of rent hikes, evictions, and faceless corporate landlords unresponsive to repairs. The UN even accused Blackstone of worsening the global housing crisis by buying up properties and hiking rents across the world. Meanwhile, Blackstone CEO Stephen Schwarzman earned $1.3 billion last year. For private equity firms like Blackstone, membership in lobbying groups is a way to protect their profits against threats like the current push for rent control. A 2023 lobbying disclosure shows the NMHC has been lobbying the Biden administration against rent control and the FHFA's oversight of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And it's not hard to guess what their lobbyists are saying in those meetings.
Y'all, we just had a team of people go into the NMHC offices. We did a meeting with their government affairs director. Cindy told us this is just a problem of housing supply.
That's a common argument from industry lobbyists, that if rent control limits developers' potential for profit, they just won't build as much housing. There's no question we need to build way more housing. And there are vigorous debates among housing advocates about how to do that through policies like zoning reform and public financing. But all of those proposals would take years to have an impact on rents. And the fact remains, renters need relief now. Time will tell if the federal government sides with tenants or corporate landlords like Blackstone. But the fact that these tenants have gotten this far is itself historic, and a sign that those of us who are renters may have more power than we think.
Hi. What's your name? A-N-G-E-L-A? What's your last name? And your last name?
It does feel different living here and being a part of KC Tenants. When I would take pictures of the trash and send it to the property manager, he said that I was harassing them, that I needed to move, or he would use my lease to evict me. But when he realized that I had KC Tenants behind me, backing me up, I've heard nothing else from him since.
Yes, baby Z, whatever you're doing, I love it. Looks like she's conducting this choir. Let's do one last, I believe. Damo, you're on.
I believe that. I believe that. I believe that we. I believe that we will win. 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 I believe that we will win.
I had never been involved in anything as powerful as KC Tenants, and I'm emotional right now because they have truly given me a voice, and I know that they have my back in whatever goes on. They have my back.